Welcome back to L.O.W. Productions, and let's continue our psychological evaluation of Max Payne. If you want to see the first part, click the link in the description down below. In the first part, we found out that Max Payne is probably dealing with depression, PTSD, trauma, and the loss of feeling pain. Now, what happens to his mental health in the second game? Well, let's dive into the strange world of psychology. Now, first of all, he seems to have some kind of memory loss because of his stress and depression, proven by the facts that he tries to remember the past correctly, is afraid of forgetting what happened on that day when his family died, and in the third game he feels stuck in the past as he doesn't know the year. In a dream of Max, you can see the mental problems he has or thinks he has: paranoia, insanity, madness, anger, and schizophrenia. Let's start with paranoia. The symptoms are no trust towards people, unforgiving, counterattacks if feeling attacked. Max gets mad at anyone who reminds him of the past and attacks them, either physical or with words. This is a symptom of paranoia, in which if attacked, the person counterattacks straight away. He also doesn't trust people and always tries to find something that might be dangerous towards him. Insanity. The symptoms: previous history of mental illness, yes, PTSD and depression. Previous history of alcohol or drug abuse, I would say yes. Aggression, please.
Haven't you figured out I don't speak your fucking language?
Seu gringo de merda, cala a boca, seu gringo!
That's right, I may be a moron, but here's the thing. I ain't quite as dumb as I seem.
Increased energy and explanation for his slow motion, and at last hallucinations. He has those, but probably because of the drug Valkyrie. Madness and anger. Well, those feelings come from his trauma because he is looking for revenge. Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a chronic and severe mental disorder that affects how a person thinks, feels and behaves. The symptoms of this mental sickness are hallucinations, reduced expression of emotions, and reduced feelings of pleasure. All of them are represented in part 1. Hallucinations through Valkyrie, the drug that is injected into his body. The reduced expression of emotions and feelings of pleasure can be because of his depression, or our next point, repression. In repression, we deny that the element of specific emotions even exists. The repressed element might come into our conscious awareness and then be denied. Payne blocks out emotions. An example for that would be that he loves Mona Sachs in a specific way but wants to stay loyal to his wife, and so tries to deny the fact that he is even feeling something for Mona. After he had sex with Mona, he regrets it and would like to delete that experience/memory. Dissociation. I quote the MHA. Dissociation is a mental process that causes a lack of connection in a person's thoughts, memory, and sense of identity. Depression and stress can cause dissociation. One symptom would be that Max can't get Mona Sachs out of his head, and therefore feels like he's being possessed by her. His dreams seem clearer than his reality, he says, and in the game he sees himself always from the third person, so he's watching his life not from his own eyes, but the eyes of a spectator. In one situation, he kisses Mona to find to reality, showing us that pleasure might help him seeing things clearer. The narration could be seen as him reminding himself every once in a while what he has to do to keep focused on his next goal. Suicidal actions. Those actions go hand in hand with dissociation. Max Payne sees himself in a dream dead with a bullet in his head and a gun next to him. He's the only one who can solve this murder, Max says, because he knows to 100% who the murderer was. The broken man himself, Max Payne. When Max calls for backup, he still walks into the building before the backup arrives, just making sure that there will be someone else who can stop the bad guys if he dies. In the third game, he's not afraid to shoot the Mafia kid, even if that could mean that he will have an ongoing war with the Mafia. He actually says, "I am waiting for someone to kill me." And I always thought if I would get killed, then by myself. He resembles death with luck, and as Pasos tells him, life is worth living for, he does not react, believe, or listen to Pasos. Max Payne once states that he would have killed himself if he had known how his life would be like. In the chapter, The Great American Savior of the Poor, Max triggers an explosion in a hotel, with enemies and himself on top, not caring about if he would die through the action. One time Max has a big head wound at the front, caused by a bullet. Let's pull up the brain again. The bullet hit his frontal lobe for sure. So what damage could the bullet do? Well, the frontal lobe helps us make choices between good or bad actions, suppress socially unacceptable things, determine similar and different things or events, and integrate emotional memories. We cannot see any results in the second title, but in the third something significant happens to Max. He says he can't see the difference between right or wrong anymore, and is not sure if he even fights for the right side. Max sometimes seems to get slightly better. In the second game, he wants to get rid of the pain, maybe mental or physical. He doesn't keep looking for problems anymore. He looks back at himself, and through that he is reborn. This could mean that he feels stronger through the horrifying experiences he made. He had a dream of his wife being dead, but that was okay. This is a sign of closure. He seems to be able to slowly cope with his wife's death. In the third game, Max says, "I have to move on." He feels like he has his self-respect back and tries to look at things in a positive way. Now Max once falls down 3 stories of a building, and through that gets a head trauma. A head trauma can cause difficulty sleeping, blurred vision, and feeling depressed. The first and the third are already explained, but the second will be explained in part 3. Thank you for watching, liking and subscribing, and see you next time when we will evaluate the last part of Max's psychology.